I want to talk about
Nick Diaz.
no Nick Diaz this week.
We're done with that?
For now, we're done with that. The saga that is Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson.
Yeah.
So mid last week, I get a text from Dustin Poirier telling me that he's out. He's not fighting on October 24th against Tony Ferguson. And this was a fight, let's be honest, when it was officially like out there.
People got excited.
Like no one doesn't like this fight, right? Everyone wants this fight. You don't like it?
I don't want it.
Why?
I don't want it. Remember what I told you? I told you for the fights that Dustin's been in, right? Dan Hooker.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, Khabib. I wanted him to take a little bit of a step back in terms of who he fights next. Not another guy that is going to be a blood and guts war, right? There's guys in there that he can go out there and fight. And I'm not even talking about guys out of the top 10. They're all going to be tough. But there are other fights out there for Dustin. Now you're going to fight the number one contender again. It's a...
Wait, so you're happy about? Okay, let me just finish what's going on.
I'm not. Wait. That whole spiel you were about to do, it's irrelevant, right? Because now we're in the conversation. You and I, we're in the conversation.
So you're happy about the fact that Dustin is out and the UFC says that they're moving on. You're happy about this fight not materializing. That's what you just said.
No, I never said I'm happy. I am saying that initially, when everybody was pumped and jazzed about the fight, I'm thinking, gosh, I wish he would have gotten something that maybe a wrestler, somebody's going to try to hold him down and he could submit him, maybe something different to where he's not getting punched in the face and elbowed the whole time. And even if he wins the fight, right, which he can, but Tony's going to cut him up and Tony's going to do all these things that makes the fight very difficult.
Maybe not. Tony coming off a loss. Maybe he's lost a step, getting a little older.
I understand, bro. I understand. But for me as a friend of Dustin, I'm like, but then fight starts to come to pass. And now it sounds like the fight's off. El Diamante is taking the stand. El Diamante is taking the stand.
I like it.
If you want El Diamante to take this fight, you got to pay him. You got to pay him.
You got to pay the cost to be the boss, right?
Pay the cost to be the boss.
Listen, Dustin Poirier, there's a fascinating thing happening here, DC. What was that? What happened?
A little bit of a cough here.
Okay.
I haven't had enough water this morning.
You okay though? Everything okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, I know you were hospital. Listen, this is a fascinating thing that's going on here because he's coming out and saying they're not paying me enough, right? That's what he's coming out. And by the way, looked into it. Disclosed purse for his last fight against Dan Hooker. Disclosed purse. Now we know about that, but disclosed purse for Dustin Poirier, just for the facts. I'm trying to get the facts here. 150 to show, 150 to win. That's 300 that he obviously got because he won the fight. 150 to show for Dustin Poirier. I think a lot of people would agree that, he's earned more than that. But here's the fascinating thing about all this, DC. The fascinating thing is usually when athletes, even in our sport, Masvidal, John Jones, talk about money, talk about wanting more, usually what happens is the fans don't back the fighter. Mm-hmm. Come on, man. Don't back up. You're scared, this and that. With Dustin, when I reported this on multiple days, it was overwhelming in terms of support for him. Pay the man, support you, Dustin. Do what you got to do. We got your back. This is the fight. And then what happens late Sunday? Tony Ferguson comes out.
Yeah.
Says, I support you. That's a big deal. I think it speaks to the respect that Dustin has developed and earned from the community. The MMA fans respect this man and feel like he has earned it. We don't know the numbers. He doesn't want to talk about the numbers. UFC isn't talking about the numbers. But just the fact that they are backing him blindly like this, I think is a pretty cool thing to see.
Well, you've watched him from the very beginning, right? Remember Dustin Poirier in WEC? Remember Dustin Poirier in his first UFC fight when he was a massive underdog against a guy. I can't remember the guy's name. It was a hot prospect. Dustin's first UFC fight.
Josh Grisby,
right? Remember Josh Grisby was supposed to be the man. Dustin beat him up. And then you see his ups. You see his downs. You saw him become a champion. You saw him lose to Khabib. You see him come back and beat Dan Hooker in the way that he did. You know what you get when you get a Dustin Poirier fight. Right, you know it's going to deliver. So I think it's a matter of what he wants. This is a guy that's a former champion, and for a long time, Ariel, making $300,000 was usually what challengers got paid for titles. So he's making fair money, I believe, decent money. But I think if I had to guess, it would be more about not win, show. It'd be more about what am I making. Right? I'm certain if they give Dustin $400,000, $500,000 flat, he'll be fine with that. Right? I just think that a lot of guys now or a little bit. They might be a little bit like done with the win and show, and I think that might be what you get with Dustin.
I agree with that. The top guys should not have a win and show. Like a guy like Dustin, when has he not shown up, right? Or a guy like
He's
Tony,
always
when
in a
is he?
fight. He's
Those
always
guys
in a
need to
fight.
they need to know what they're going to get the moment they step in the cage, right?
Oh, it's the best. It's a great feeling, right? To know exactly when you get a contract for a certain amount of fights, you know exactly how much money you're going to make. That's a great. It's a great feeling. But then you look at the pay structure, right, in MMA, and this is not just the UFC. This is everywhere, right? This is it still called the World Series of Fighting, or is it called
No,
something else?
it hasn't been called that.
What's it
I
called?
think in like 3-4 years. PFL.
PFL, right? Look at PFL. It's win show. Look at Bellator. A lot of win show. Like
Actually,
we got
Bellator
guys.
top guys, not as much.
No, but
Bellator
we
top
got guys. We got guys that fight in Bellator and they make win and show, right?
Yeah.
It's like that's just the pay structure of mixed martial arts. Because what if a guy like, when a guy doesn't make weight, you start taking money out of that show money. It's not overall money. It's like, right? Is it overall money or is it just show money?
No, show.
It's the show money, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I get why they pay in that way, but I
No,
also
come
see why fighters are just like, man, I just want to see and know what
Here he comes. Here he comes. Corporate DC back at
I'm
it.
just saying. No, I'm
Back at it again like it's the first time.
Anytime it's hard, Ariel. Anytime change is hard because it's not going to be change all around, right? Bellator is not paying everybody just to show base. It's like it's the same thing,
No, well, okay. Look, if you're a younger guy starting out, like 10-10 is fair, right? You're starting out. Okay, you got, but the show win model, as you probably know, was instituted when they were trying to build the UFC when Zuffa bought it in early 2000s to try to entice fighters to put on shows, right? Like to go for it, to go for finishes. That's why the bonus structure was put in place. Sub of the night, KO of the night, all that stuff. But there are certain guys who have reached a level. And by the way, with Dustin, he hasn't told me that the problem is show win, just for the record.
No, I know. Me neither. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, a lot of times, though, the issues are rooted in that. Like, guys want to just know what they're making. And it's justified, especially when you're a guy that always brings it.
So here's the interesting thing that happens. The interesting thing that happens usually in these cases are, all right, you're out on to the next, right? Mm-hmm. Now what's happening is fans are saying, I support you. Tony is saying, I support you, but you still do hear people say like, oh, who's out there? Charles Oliveira, who's out there? Dan Hooker, this and that.
Paul Felder. Here's the issue, right? And here's the issue. When Dana says, I'm not going to try to salvage it, and then you see Paul post a picture of him versus Tony, or you see Edson, and then there's options, right? Most of the times, moves are made when you don't feel like there's an option, right? When Masvidal said, I'm out, and Gilbert Burns was sick, you really have no option but to go and pay that man what he probably deserved, right? That's what he deserved in the first place. Paid him. It ended up paying dividends because the pay-per-view sold.
Not according to you.
I mean, listen, he got paid, right? And there's no issue with him getting paid. And obviously he deserved it, right? Because look at what the pay-per-view did. It showed his value. So it worked out. And I'm certain that if you just paid Dustin Poirier, it'd be the same thing.
Okay, but here's what's fascinating about it, DC. Tony is not just saying it publicly, he's saying it privately. My understanding is he's like, don't bring me anyone. I want Dustin Poirier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you can keep your salvaging something, whatever, not salvaging. You can keep your Charles Oliveira. You can keep. Now what do they do?
Well, it's so crazy because you kind of put me in a rough situation, right? Because what do you do? Like, look, man, so Tony Ferguson, right? 12.
Can I tell you what they do? They figure it out.
They're going to get rid of both of them. They'll get rid of both of them.
Oh, sure. They're not fighting on this card. There's no way.
It's like they'll just get rid of both of them because that's what they'll do, right? It's like Tony Ferguson that had won 12 fights in a row. You can say, don't bring me another fight. But when you're coming off of a loss in the fashion that he lost, it's like, okay, you don't want to fight? Fine. We'll just get somebody else to fight. That's the problem.
Well, this particular card, I don't even think needs those guys, to be honest, because it's, the Khabib Gaethje card, and there's Robert Whittaker on the card against Jared Cannonier.
I would love for it should. Look, man, put it on that card.
Well, what's also interesting about this, which I reported, but didn't really get picked up last week. The stipulation that they were attaching to this fight, which I never heard before, was let's say Khabib Gaethje and then the co-main was Tony Dustin. If Khabib if Khabib got hurt, Justin would get bumped up to the main event to fight Dustin Poirier. Dustin would jump up to the main event to fight Justin Gaethje because, of course, he has a win over him. But if Gaethje got hurt,
Tony Ferguson would go up.
And we would get Khabib versus Tony. So
you
it was
have
like
to salvage the fight. You have to salvage this fight.
Could you imagine if something happened? Could you imagine? I don't want to see this happen, but could you imagine a world where something happens with Gaethje in this world that we're living in?
No.
And Tony versus Khabib.
No. That would be okay. Finally, right?
I know, right?
They get the fight, but how about this though? Right? Like, how about this though? What if something happened to Khabib? And then Dustin gets bumped up and fights Gaethje, who he has a win over, and then he wins. Is he the interim champion again? Like, how does there's so many factors. Like, is he the interim champ again? Like, how does that work?
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.